Parallax. You are now tuned into the Parallax Effect. It's not the message, it's the messenger. What up, Ryan? It's time. Parallax. Oatmeal's better than no meal. Guess who's back to make mountains out of molehills? If this don't move you, I bet my folks will. This beat's smooth, but trust me, there ain't no chill. Ask Ryan, if I'm lying, I'm flying. It's the sculpture of all aspects of the culture. Parallax. The People's Podcast is back, laying it down flat for you wherever you at. Your job, or your car, or your jog, or your flight. Loads of archives with no ending in sight. Hitting on any topic, long as it ain't no nonsense. You can see the others for the drama and the gossip. Word to Brett, best there ever was, recognize it. Never secondary, my eyes stay on the pocket. Parallax. And if you feeling the vibes, give us 5 stars. Oh, and follow and subscribe. Parallax. Sit back and recline, relax and enjoy the ride. Cause it's that Parallax. And you just passed the test. This is the Parallax Effect. Come on, Parallax. Sit back and recline, relax and enjoy the ride. Cause it's that Parallax. And you're here, that's mad respect. Welcome to the Parallax Effect. Yeah.
Shout out to Mega Ran for lacing the intro theme. Sean, I definitely felt official the first time you played that for me, man. So this is the pilot episode of the Parallax Effect. Welcome to the Parallax Effect. I am your host, Ryan Lavelle. I'm a physical therapist and current PhD student based out of Southern California, Pasadena. Represent. We are very excited to bring you this show. The aim of the Parallax Effect is really to bring you more authentic and exclusive interviews and stories surrounding triumph and perseverance. The show is going to cover many different topics, including health and wellness. We're going to get your sports fix in. We're going to invite a lot of history buffs on the show. Talk about the environment, pop culture. I mean, really, the human experience. To be honest with you, we want to really entertain you. We want to inspire you. We want to let you know that you are not alone in your journey to success. Legendary coach Jim Valvano once said during his 5-star speech at the ESPYs that if you laugh, think, and cry, then that is a full day. So here at the Parallax Effect, that's what we want to do. We want to help you do all of those things and have a full day, have a great day. Thank you for joining us here at the Parallax Effect Podcast. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Parallax Effects. That's Parallax Effect. Add an S onto it, Parallax Effects. And on Instagram at Parallax Effect Media. So with that being said, let's do this. We're taking off with a lot of energy here today. I want to introduce you all to my guest, Dr. Sean Johnson. He is the founder and charter president of the USC Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy Black Alumni Association. We're going to talk about that. Founder of Advanced Rehab Sport and Performance. Personal business, we're going to talk about that. Current clinician seeing patients at the Meyer Institute of Sport, we're going to talk about that. And faculty of the USC Physical Therapy Department. This man is doing a lot. He holds a lot of hats. He wears them well. Welcome to the Parallax Effect, Sean Johnson.
Come on, brother. Hey, man, that was an absolutely tremendous intro. And I'm talking about the intro to your show first and foremost. I want to get the track to that. That sounded nice. And then thank you for the kind words. I appreciate you, my man.
Oh, man, always. This is always real, recognized real. You were one of the first persons I reached out to say, hey, man, we just got to have a conversation because you've done a lot for my career. You noticed me as a young budding graduate of physical therapy school, pulled me on into the California district in the San Gabriel Valley and just kind of gave me a platform to exercise what I feel should be done and what, represent the patient for the great patient experience. But enough about me. I want to know more about you. So I really want to start before physical therapy became a thing for you, before USC. Tell me about you, man. Where did you grow up? Tell me about the great Sean Johnson, please.
Well, first of all, I don't know if I'd say great. That's for sure. But again, I appreciate you, my man. And before we even touch on my journey, I do want to acknowledge your journey. I think it's been tremendous just seeing how much you've grown. I think we first met when you're a student, and now you are a veteran clinician, professional. You have your own podcast, PhD, stuff that you're doing at Rancho. So you definitely deserve a salute and applause yourself. So, definitely proud of you, my brother.
I appreciate that, man. Thank
Absolutely. So, where does it all begin, right?
Where does it all begin?
My journey really started. So originally from Cheyenne, Wyoming, which there's not a lot of us out there. Surprisingly, yes, there are Black folks in Cheyenne. I'm actually proud to say that I'm from Cheyenne, Wyoming, because the reason why I'm out there is because of my grandfather. And my grandfather, without question, is by blood, my grandfather, but in life and what he meant to me. He's no longer with us, but what he meant to me was my father. And the reason why my family's connected to that state and to that city is because he was the first Black railroad engineer in the Midwest. And so he himself was a trailblazer, and he hauled coal in Cheyenne and got stationed out in Cheyenne. And the rest is history in terms of my family being from Cheyenne, or at least transitioning. I'm the only person from my family from that state. Went to
what was your grandfather's name? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And I appreciate you saying that, actually, because I love to just share with the audience who he was by name. Jewel Jones Jr.
Jewel Jones Jr., JJJ.
Come on. Yeah, and everybody called him JJ, but technically you're right, it was Triple J. He was named after his father, my great-grandfather, Jewel Jones, who himself, which is it's worth mentioning, was a Black business owner in the Jim Crow South.
Wow.
So think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that. My grandfather was born in 1929, and his father was a business owner during that period of time. So, so pretty incredible, and I'm truly honored to have that as a part of my story and my lineage for sure. My family is there. Be remiss if I didn't mention my grandmother, who's no longer with us, who was a powerful woman in Frankie Jones, and then my mother, Jewel Diane Johnson. And coming from a loving family, tremendous roots, transitioned from Wyoming to where I went to undergraduate school in South Dakota. So I went to the University of Sioux Falls, played football there. At the time that I was there, it was NAIA. It's now Division II, outside linebacker. And that's when I first got introduced to physical therapy. So how I decided to become a physical therapist and pursue this as a career path was while I was in college. I redshirted my freshman year. So we're looking at my senior year academically, but my junior year athletically. So I still had 2 years of eligibility left. And so at the time, I was a biology major, and I was majoring to become a zoologist to study lions in Africa. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So think about Nat Geo, Discovery Channel, Crocodile Hunter.
That was all you.
Come on. I wanted to be in the savannah. I wanted to be pinning them. I wanted to be right there. I've always had a passion for lions and nature. And now we fast forward back to what I was saying. It's now senior year academically, junior athletically, and it's like go time. Like I'm getting ready to graduate. Clearly, as much as I'd want to, I'm not good enough to go to the NFL. So I have to start thinking beyond football. And I had to ask myself a real kind of serious question. Look in the mirror, come to Jesus moment. Can I see myself studying lions in Africa 30 years from now?
Right.
And the answer was no. Plus, at the time, I was allergic to cats anyway. So I had to come up with a plan B. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I met with a college counselor. And I told him that I, was interested in science, always been a science nerd, and I wanted to continue to do something related to science, although I no longer wanted to go the zoology route. I was, at the time, interested in patient care, but I never had the desire to be a physician or work in a hospital or just be a physician in general. I have great respect for physicians, but it just wasn't what I was interested in or passionate about. And obviously with football, my collegiate career, I wanted something where I could combine the science, the patient care, and exercise. And so was my professor, and I went to a small school, so the professor was also my guidance counselor. He was like, that sounds like physical therapy. And I had no idea what a physical therapist was at the time. I had no clue. I'd never been to a physical therapist. Wasn't very familiar with the profession. And so he broke it down for me, described it for me. He told me that, I could get a doctorate degree through the profession, that it could combine all those elements that I was looking for. And so what I did was I went to the American Physical Therapy website, did my research, and I started to shadow a physical therapist who was working at a skilled nursing facility at the time with older adults. And actually, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so what I did is I finished off the biology degree, and I got a second major in exercise science, double majored in that, was able to apply to PT school, physical therapy school, was fortunate enough to get accepted, and the rest is history. Here we are.
Here we are, man. That's such an excellent journey. And kind of like you as well, too. I didn't really know too much about physical therapy until I got to undergrad at University of Arizona. And it just so happens that I was in an exercise physiology class because I was a physiology major. And the professor, it was like one of these like Jeopardy moments where it was like 1996 Olympics. I know pretty much everything about it, or knew everything about it at the time.
Right.
So he started rattling off all these questions, and I was boom. Oh yeah, 119.32 Michael Johnson. Oh, Magnificent Seven. So he figured like, man, you must be some kind of Olympic athlete. I'm like, not really. I just watched, I just was really I stayed home for the 96 Olympics. I mean, that was what I did.
Right.
And from there, we just developed a relationship, and he's the one who introduced me to physical therapy. So shout out to Professor Doug Keene. If he ever gets to hear this, man, I appreciate you. You changed my life. But that's really cool. That's really cool, man. So I'm glad that you had that experience growing up, man, especially out there in Wyoming, where Black people do exist. Yes, sir.
Right.
And you brought it to South Dakota as well. I like that. But tell me a little bit about that. Was there a culture class coming to Southern California? So, a lot of my friends, we're all kind of Pac-12 graduates. I'm University of Arizona. We got some Berkeleys, we got some UCLAs, we got some USC. So you imagine all the banter that goes on, right? So what is USC like? Is it really the University of Spoiled Children, or what's it like over there?
If you're a hater, that's what it is.
That's what it is.
But what we believe is it's the University of Serious Connection.
Serious. I like that.
Come on. Like USC Network, brother.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of a culture shock, the first thing I would say is this. It literally, and I'm not making this up, it took me all of 2, maybe 3 days for me to realize, being out here in California, that I was home.
Wow.
This is where I wanted to stay. I moved, so I believe in kind of the universe bringing things together for a reason, synchronicity, and things becoming connected. And I moved into the apartment that I moved in Pasadena, so your hometown, above a couple who to this day are my play parents. So all the places that I could have moved above and lived above, I moved above these people. Shout out to Eleanor Cornelius Lee, Mama Lee, Daddy Lee. And again, my first full day in California, they had me down for dinner, and they've been like play parents to me ever since. I just got engaged, and she introduced me to her jeweler and took me to pick out my fiance's engagement ring. So,
wow.
They're family, right? And so I think, one, the beauty of having these individuals who I've become close with from day one, from jump, from me being out here, that was really helped with the transition. But two, it's Southern California, and I instantly, it's like love at first sight. I'll never forget, sitting in a diner on Colorado Boulevard in Old Town, and there's a video. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see me. For those of you who aren't, that can't see me, I'm a 6 foot, 230 pound Black man. So you put me in certain environments, and I'm gonna stick out. I can't blend in, right? And so. And I was a lot bigger man when I played college football, right? And so it was one of those situations where when I was back in Sioux Falls and back in South Dakota, wherever I go, people are looking at me. Or when I was growing up in high school and I was playing high school ball and I got a little bit bigger, and again, being a Black man in a predominantly white situation, small town, wherever I go, either someone knew me or I was getting the eyes, I was getting the stares.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget having a burger at this diner on Colorado Boulevard. And I'm sitting outside eating it. And one, it's beautiful. Palm trees, 80s, nice, cool breeze,
right.
Blue skies. And folks are walking by, and I'm seeing every shade, every color of person, and they could absolutely care less about me. And it's one of the first times in my life where I felt like, oh, I actually can blend in, and it's a good thing. Like I'm not sticking out like a sore thumb, and I just that energy I felt in that moment sitting there at that diner. And again, it was within like maybe 2 to 3 days of me being here. I was like, this is where I want to be. This is home for me. And then the story goes on. I tell people, fast forward to now it's January, February, and I see people walking around in scarves and gloves and it's 60 degrees out. I'm like, if y'all think this is cold, then I'm definitely where I need to be.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
this isn't
definitely
cold,
me.
right?
My thermostat is anything below 67. I'm having some issues, man. So California is
Right.
probably where I need to remain. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it was like a
I'm telling
reverse
you.
culture shock for you. That's good. That you came, you felt at home right away because I think that's where you needed to be, man. Because ever since you enrolled and graduated from USC, man, the sky's been the limit. You just shot off like a rocket ship, man. So you stayed on with the university as clinician and faculty. Is that right? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Right. Yeah. So clinical faculty. So went to grad school there, obviously physical therapy school for 3 years, did an orthopedic residency. When I finished, I was someone and I think this is important actually, just to kind of back up just a quick second before we talk about my job.
Mm-hmm.
As a student, I made it a point. So we talked about being a 6 foot, 230 pound black man and sticking out. I was the only black man in my class,
Mm,
right? And I think that
same here.
sometimes as a people, we might put pressure on ourselves, right? To need to overachieve because of the color of our skin and what we look like. I remember growing up, my mom telling me that, son, you're going to always have to work that much harder than your white counterparts, because you're going to have obstacles and barriers that are laid before you. You may get judged because of the color of skin. You may get judged because of the way you look. And you're going to have to then potentially push yourself to close that gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
To try to achieve some of the successes that you want. And so then now as a student in SC's program, from day one, I sat in the front of the classroom, not
Mm,
necessarily because I wanted to be in the front of the classroom, but because as the only black man, I was hyper focused on not wanting to perpetuate any stereotypes. I was hyper focused on wanting to show that I belonged and I deserved to be here, and that I was qualified enough as a graduate student, as a pending doctor of physical therapy, right? And it was also one of the reasons why I ran for class president, because of that
mm,
same energy. I didn't want to just sit in and fill a seat. I wanted to go above and beyond, and again to buck any stereotypes, and to prove that again I'm worthy of this opportunity. So then fast forward, orthopedic residency, blessed to become the first orthopedic resident, black resident accepted into our program, and the first resident period, actually, not just orthopedic, but orthopedic, neuro, sports, pediatric. I'm the first resident in the history of our program who identifies as black. And that's
mm-hmm.
something that I'm proud of. And it's a blessing to be able to say that. And then from there, well, one more thing I'd add is that as a resident, you have the opportunity to teach in our physical therapy program. And so I
Gotcha.
taught in one of the clinical first year classes. Shout out to Marissa Perdomo. She liked the way I taught in her class at the time that she was leading. And so when I graduated from our residency program, she gave me the opportunity to stay on and teach. And so at this point, I was adjunct faculty when I first started my career post residency, teaching in her class and then seeing patients at a small clinic in Mid-City on San Vicente at Pro Physical Therapy, run by a great guy, Don Nelson. I was in that role of adjunct faculty and seeing patients at this outpatient clinic for about 7 or 8 months. And then one of my main mentors, who was full-time faculty at the time, Michael Donald, I was proctoring an exam in the classroom, and he pulled me aside after the exam and said, what are your thoughts about coming back full-time? And so he created this opportunity to transition back to the university as full-time clinical faculty, where then I saw patients in our faculty practice on the main campus, patients consisting of faculty, students, staff. About 99 and 98% of the patients were within the USC family. And then I continued to teach in our PT program. And I'm remained in that role as full-time clinical faculty for about the first 9 years of my career. In about year 8, I was fortunate to be put in a position of interim director of the faculty practice and ran that clinic for a period of time.
Wow. Man, and I think I just want to, for the folks that aren't really familiar with the physical therapy profession, residency programs are similar to physician type residency programs where the physical therapist selects a specialty, and they study that specialty intensely, and they have to test into becoming a specialist. So Sean was able to do that for orthopedics. So just want to clean that up for everybody who may be wondering what exactly does that mean. So that's a big deal. And that led into you being able to join full time. And that's something that people try years to be able to become full time faculty at, especially at an institution like USC. So hats off to you majorly,
Thank you, brother.
definitely. And so we appreciate that. We appreciate you. And how did coming from there? I know your next step in your journey was the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I think it's such great marketing how they put Los Angeles in their name,
Right,
by the way.
exactly.
But how did that come across? Were you just LinkedIn, or you hopped on Indeed or something like that? But how did that come about?
Right. So the short answer and the direct answer is another mentor of mine, a friend of mine, Bernard Lee, was promoted to director of performance and ran the department for the Angels, and you recruited me to come on. And so we'll circle back to that in a second. But I know one of the things, Ryan, that you mentioned that is important part of this conversation that you and I are having, which again I appreciate the opportunity to do this, is to discuss adversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And know that no matter how hard that you work, no matter how hard that you prepare, things aren't always going to go your way. And the transition from USC to the Angels actually is indicative of that, of something not necessarily going the way I wanted it to go at that stage of my career, my life. So I mentioned that I finished off as full-time faculty as interim director of the faculty practice on the main campus, the University Park campus. So if you back up, one of the things that I did was when I was graduating and transitioning into the start of my career post-residency, I wrote down a bunch of goals. And throughout the duration of the majority of my career, I've always been a big believer in the SMART goals, right? That specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely based goal. And then I've always been a big proponent of writing your goals down or putting them somewhere where you can see them, right? And be present with them and have them a part of your process consistently and continually. So I created this Word document and I wrote down a bunch of short-term and long-term goals on this Word document. And one of the goals I laid out for myself is I wanted to become director of the faculty practice at that main campus. So now, graduate. I actually wanted to stay at the clinic, but they were full. They had PTs. There wasn't an opening. So that's when I transitioned to the clinic that I told you about in Mid-City. I'm teaching the PT program as adjunct faculty. So then my mentor comes along, Michael Donald. He's able to recruit me to come back to the clinic because one of the therapists had went and left the clinic to go to the hospital setting. So within that, I'm at a barbecue at my mentor's house. And the barbecue was there to celebrate the graduating residents. So this was, I'm now about a year removed from my own residency. So this is the class after me that was just graduating. And then to welcome in the new residents. And at this barbecue was the current director of the faculty practice where I did my residency at, and I was transitioning back to work at full time. She actually just retired from USC. Shout out to Jackie Dilla, great human being. And so I'm talking to her at this barbecue, this pool party, and I tell her, I look her directly in the eye, and I tell her, Jackie, I'm gonna be honest with you, I want to have your job one day. Now,
That's the way you gotta do it.
But it also, let's be honest, it probably sounds a little bit forthright, a little cocky, a little arrogant. That's not at all how I meant it. It wasn't any energy related to, I'm coming for your job, I'm coming to take your job. It was related more to, I want to learn from you, I want to grow from you, I'd like to be mentored by you as it relates to clinical leadership. And then when you're ready to transition on, like a track relay, I hope you pass the baton to me and I can take over for you into that position. And so then sure enough, fast forward 8 years later, and she transitions on to another position. And I have the opportunity to become interim director.
Wow.
And the key is the interim piece. So I'm looking at this like I'm right there knocking at the door from that goal that I set myself 8 years before. Like I'm so close I can touch it, I can taste it, right? So I stay in this position for about a year, a little over a year actually. And I'm working my butt off trying to put a lot of energy and sweat equity into this opportunity, this position. And then one of my bosses, I had a lot of bosses at the time, one of my bosses tells me, okay, now's the opportunity for you to see if we're going to remove that interim tag and to interview for the full-time position.
Right.
And so indeed, I interviewed for that full-time position to become the full-time director, which is, again, what I set the goal out for. And then I found out about a little over a month later that I wouldn't get it and that someone else was going to take over. And it was definitely a gut punch. One of those where it hits you. It kind of knocks the wind out of you type of thing.
Right.
And I remember everybody in my circle at the time, my mother and close family and friends, et cetera, mentors of mine telling me, look, when one door closes, another one opens.
Mm.
And, at the time, we all have loved ones who support us and they care about us and they're going to tell us things where they're going to speak into our lives to encourage us. And it's important and it means something to us. But when you're kind of, when you're kind of down and you're not feeling it, you kind of hear it, you receive it, but you're also kind of like, yeah, sounds good, right? That was kind of my space moment.
Yeah,
exactly. And so with that being said, literally, essentially a month to the time in which I found out I wasn't going to become the full-time director, I got a text from who would become my next boss from the Angels saying, would you be interested in applying to the Angels?
Wow.
And so sure enough, I ended up interviewing. I applied. I interviewed with the general manager at the time, 2 assistant general managers, and Bernard Lee. And on my drive home from the stadium, I got a call from Bernard saying, essentially, welcome to the Angels. And it was an opportunity that was tremendous. It was, life is about timing. And at the stage of my career, I had pretty much in the 9 years I'd have been at USC had amazing opportunities to do amazing things. And I'm the type of person who likes to seek new opportunities. And I essentially accomplished a lot of what I wanted to accomplish. And it was time for me to take advantage of this opportunity and pivot and transition. And I was, so glad that I did. I spent 4 seasons with the team, and it was an incredible opportunity in the position that I served in as both Major League physical therapist and assistant strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, and I want to get into that as well too. By the way, that was a definitely heavenly intervention. I had to do that with the Angels, and yeah,
right.
Wait, we got that somewhere over here. Where's the little drum thing? Well, we figure this thing out, man. There it is. All right. No, but definitely a grand opportunity. You made it to the major leagues. And for those, including myself, who aren't really as familiar with because I think, as kind of Kobe Bryant once said, like his physical therapist was his best kept secret. So what was exactly, I mean, obviously we know what your role was and what you did, but what was your relationship with like the players, the coaching staff, the management? How did that all form out for you?
Great. It was an incredible experience, actually. I think that Bernard did an amazing job of putting together an elite team. I'm sure I'm biased, but I think that, at the time that we all worked together, at the time that we were all in baseball together, that we had one of, if not the best teams in all of baseball, from a performance team standpoint. We had tremendous clinicians. Myself and Bernard were the 2 Major League physical therapists. Andrew Hawkins was our minor league rehab coordinator, so he's a physical therapist on the minor league side. We had some tremendous athletic trainers at the major league level, as well as throughout the entirety of the organization on the different minor league affiliates. Our performance side was incredible. We had, Lee Fiocchi is our head strength coach. We had some great strength coaches. Becky Toomey is our dietitian. Will Lesnar, our mental performance. Adam Nevela, Eric Munson, the 2 Major League athletic trainers that I worked with. Erica Bell, our sports psychologist. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Wow.
Yoichi is a massage therapist. We had tremendous people working together in a variety of areas. And I think that, was it always smooth? I think that, so when I was hired was when the team was essentially put together. We had people that were either promoted within the organization. We had other people like myself that were hired at the same time. And Ryan Crow was another person that was there. And we all worked together at a very high level. But at the beginning, we had to get used to each other. It's any interpersonal relationship, where you have to get used to this new partner, whether it be romantic, whether it be friendship, whether it be professional. And so there were some bumpy roads. There was times in which things got clunky, didn't go as well as planned. But ultimately, if you look at the 4 years in which that team worked together alongside each other, I think that we functioned at a very high level, and and really what it came down to, this is what it's about, is what is about us. It's about the athlete. And I think that we did the best that we could to provide the highest level of care for the athletes that we serve, because we work for them. And then as it relates to the player development side, the coaching side, I think that there was, again, a tremendous relationship between coaches and performance and medical. And I think that there was this both an appreciation and a mutual respect between the two. As a coach, player development, you have a skill that I don't have, to be able to literally develop from a skills perspective this elite level athlete. And then myself and my teammates, we have a skill that you don't have in terms of whether it be medically rehabilitation, whether it be strength and performance, whatever the case is, that they don't have. And I think that the biggest thing I can say about it, the book Ego is the Enemy, great book. There wasn't a lot of egos in jockeying. There was this interdependence, this interconnectedness of folks coming together to work together for the athlete.
See, I had no idea that there was so much rehab personnel on one team or one system, So
Right.
that's really, really enlightening and to hear, and that you were, one of the main drivers of keeping the team obviously physically fit, but everything else that comes underneath that umbrella to give their best performance on game day. So I bet that was a great experience. Any like highlights or any kind of major key either stories or factors that you pulled out of that experience?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, just the opportunity, right? So I had a hybrid role. So I was physical therapist and assistant strength and conditioning coach, and so that put me in this blended role between the two worlds of medical and performance. And that's something that it was a tremendous opportunity for me just to learn and grow as a professional and as a human. And two, for me to have the opportunity to try to take that role and be creative and kind of and make it my own, and grow it my own way. There was times in which I would be in the training room or work with the athlete, and I'm more medical, I have my medical hat on, and I'm doing more rehab specific or physical therapy, if you will, based type of interventions and processes related to that. And then there were times in which now I'm taking my physical therapy hat off. And even though I don't claim to be someone who went to school for formal strength and conditioning training, I do have a passion for it, and I've learned a lot from strength coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm more strength and conditioning and taking an athlete through a lift and being a little bit more performance based. And then there was times in which the two literally came together, where I was both that hybrid rehab element as well as performance element. If you look at your stereotypical sports performance department for a team, what happens is when an athlete is injured,
Mm-hmm.
and they go on the injured list, for example, in baseball, and let's say they have surgery, whatever the case is, there's this early phase or several phases where it's more medical and rehab focused, where the physical therapist or the athletic trainer is working on the specific rehab processes with this athlete. But then there comes a point in that transition, or in this journey of this athlete back to the return to play, where now there's a lot more of a performance emphasis, whether it be in weight room lifting, whether it be on the field based activity, sprint training, conditioning, etc. And then oftentimes what can happen is that there could be this passage where the athlete's now being passed from the medical profession to the strength and conditioning coach. And given the duality of my role, I was able to maintain the care of the athlete through the transition, through the performance side, working alongside our strength coaches and be very highly involved, oftentimes leading that process, which was a pretty dope opportunity from day one to day whatever of them getting back on the field. And I think that was an absolute blessing and something that's really helped in my development in my journey as a professional.
How did you handle if there was a situation where the player was expected or wanted to return to play, but you maybe felt like they weren't quite there yet?
Well, to be blunt, you're not always successful, right? And there's
Mm-hmm.
athletes, there's a couple athletes I'm still close to this day where, one in particular where, he was an incredibly talented human being, an incredibly talented pitcher, Cy Young talent, without effort can throw 100 miles an hour, right? Great movement on his ball. And unfortunately, an injury ended his career where he had to retire. And I intimately worked with him, and I worked with him at a high level, and I gave him as much as I could, as best as I could, and it just unfortunately didn't work. It didn't, he wasn't able to come back, and so it sucks, and because not only just that from the sake of him as the athlete, do you want to see him get back? But he was an incredible human being, right? He was a good one, right? And you want to see those types of people win at life when they're genuinely good human beings. And sometimes I think professional athletes can get a bad rap, but he is, forget professional athletes, one of just the most genuinely nice human beings I've ever been around, period, right?
Right.
In all walks of life. And so I think that was an example of, I was fortunate enough to be a part of some successes where we were able to help with the athlete, facilitate the athlete's journey to come back to the return to play, because we don't do it. The athlete does it, but we help facilitate it. And then unfortunately, there's been times in which, I was a part of some situations where it was able to happen. Even with those athletes in which they were able to successfully come back, it's not always smooth. You're going to have either some bumps in the road or some setbacks in their process. And I think that being able to understand that not only am I a part of a team with all of my teammates, the strength coaches, the other medical, and all the folks in between, but the athlete that I'm working with, that individual, we are a team.
Mm-hmm.
I am not dictating to that athlete. It's the essence, in my opinion, of what we mean by patient-centered care or athlete-centered care, where we are interconnected and we're doing this together. And I think that when there was those times in which we hit those roadblocks and that adversity of the setbacks, being able to have a conversation, and the athlete and I have been able to put our heads together and look at, okay, what do we need to do to adapt care? What do we need to do to evolve our process or take a step back to allow us to navigate this setback that you're in? But it's definitely, any clinician who does this long enough is going to experience it, and being able to navigate that's important.
Yeah, very much so. And I'm glad you gave the human side to the athletes that you were working with, because like you said, I think we as a society kind of we demand a lot of our athletes, and we
Right.
see them as superhuman and don't really understand the ramifications of injury and how long that really takes to adequately heal and get back to performance. And some people, unfortunately, don't recover as well as we would like them to, and that is something that's very hard to deal with, especially when we're talking about your profession, your job, the way you take care
Right.
of your family and that. So, but so yeah, as athletes experience, a lot of them now, obviously, work for multiple teams. I think
Right.
that happened for you. I think you spent some time up in Seattle uh, after your time with the Angels. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, one, I think we should talk about why we transitioned from the Angels to the Mariners to begin with, because I think that's an important part of the conversation, because
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a lot of physical therapists. There might be young physical therapists who may listen to this, who have a goal or desire to want to work with either a professional team or work with professional athletes. And I think that there's this reality of that setting that needs to be discussed. It's that elephant in the room that you can't dance around. And that is that, especially if you work for a team, or even potentially an athlete directly, there is this element of, there's this old saying, we're hired to get fired, right? And why is that? Because the elements of sport are conducive on wins or losses, on performance, And if the team's not performing, if the athlete's not performing, that can lead to you not having a job. And I get it, because there's just like, I had a job and a livelihood. There's people throughout the organization that have a job or livelihood, and decisions have to be made, right? And so ultimately, with after my final season with the team, a new general manager was brought on. The general manager that hired me was let go. I have a lot of respect for that general manager. He was amazing, incredible. And the new general manager leadership team came in, and essentially, 90% of baseball operations was let go, including a good portion of the performance team. And I have no ill will or hard feelings. I had an incredible time and experience with my time with the Angels, legitimate and genuinely, especially within all the folks that I worked with. And it's just a part of the game. This is the things that happen, right? And so about 4 to 5 days, maybe after I was released from the Mariners, I got a message from leadership from the Seattle Mariners, and I interviewed with the team over the course of several weeks, essentially several months, and was fortunate enough to be hired as into a position which was the manager of athlete care. And this was a leadership opportunity. This was less clinical. This was something that I wanted. Again, stage of my career. Now, if you look at it, I just spent 4 seasons in professional baseball, and I'm essentially, 13 years into my career. So I felt that I was ready for it, both from an experience standpoint, from a maturity just in life perspective, and from a professional standpoint. And so I wanted to take on that challenge. And I think in life, we have to be willing to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. We have to be willing to stretch ourselves and take risks and take on some challenges at times and get out of our comfort zone. And so I did that, and moved to Seattle, was in this position where essentially overseeing processes related to performance. And ultimately, I guess what I'd say is it didn't work out the way in which I wanted it to. I learned a lot about myself as a human being. I learned a lot about myself as a professional, as a leader, as a clinician, in a variety of different ways. Like any human being within this journey, there were things that I did well. There were mistakes along the way, and I learned from both, right? And so transition from that opportunity after 1 season, and then transition back to LA, where I worked with an athlete directly for an entire offseason, one of my old athletes from the Angels. And then when he transitioned to start spring training, I then transitioned to the Meyer Institute of Sport, where I've been seeing a mix of their clients as well as my own clients within that facility.
Yeah, and expand upon the Meyer Institute of Sport. How long you've been there? Where exactly it's located, and kind of we get it. It's more of a performance setting, but what are the majority of your clients? How old are they? What kind of impairments are they generally having? Things like that.
Yes, it's a great question. So my Institute of Sport is ran by John and Lisa Meyer, 2 tremendous individuals. They both taught me years ago in physical therapy school. They both have had amazingly successful careers as physical therapists. I've learned a lot from both of them. I have a great respect for what they've accomplished and what they've been able to do within their journey. They created a sports performance facility within the Toyota Performance Center. So the Toyota Performance Center is in El Segundo, California, about a 5-minute drive from LAX, Los Angeles International Airport. It's currently where it's the home base for the Los Angeles Kings, where they have their practices at and where their facilities at, outside of where they play their games at the Crypto Center. It's formally the home base for the Lakers. So it used to be this hybrid facility for both the Lakers and the Kings. And so when the Lakers moved out into their new facility, the area in which the Lakers were, John and Lisa came in, gutted it, and turned it into what is now the Meyer Institute of Sport. Incredible facility. Anyone who is looking for high-level physical therapy care, I would recommend coming to see us. It's a great practice. with exposure to technology that can provide inform our process. Two things: one, it can inform our process in terms of of our decision making, and it can also assist with the interventions that we provide to the patient. As it relates to the patients and the patients that I see a mix of the professional athlete and as well as the high level athlete that's non-professional, as well as the general population. So I have professional athletes on my schedule. I have collegiate and high level high school athletes on my schedule. And then I have the weekend warrior as well, or the general orthopedic sport type of patient that's on my schedule. And I like that a lot because I spent 5 years of my career only seeing professional athletes. And I spent the first 9 years of my career seeing the mix of everyone. So it's nice to kind of be back in that mix and have that diversity of the spectrum of the most elite athlete versus that weekend warrior that wants to play pickleball.
Right. Yeah, and it sounds like you landed in an ideal spot for those reasons. You know, you still get kind of the best of both worlds of what you've, the majority of your career you've been doing. So I'm really happy to hear that, man. I would like to come down and visit actually, just to kind of check out the spot, check out your new location. So we got to put that in the near future for sure.
That's it.
What I really want to ask you about is some of your personal endeavors. And these, what we're going to talk about, they mean a lot to me, and we'll talk about why, but I think we're going to get into it, obviously. But the first thing is the Black Alumni Association at the USC Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy Department that you founded. Now, just to kind of let everybody know, like and especially being over down at Rancho Los Amigos, I've met a lot of USC alums, Black USC alums, PTs, phenomenal people like JoJo Robinson and Robin Buckner, and, the whole group. And it's like I kind of just self-indoctrinated myself into this group as a non-USC alum. And so we went to the Dodgers game last season with you, and it was just really good to be a part of the group and see what you created. How did this form? How did you do it?
No, I appreciate you, and I appreciate because it is a USC alum, but it's all in the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see somebody that is a part of the community, and we want to connect, and it doesn't matter if you went to USC or not, and we appreciate your support. We love seeing you at the Dodgers event. You're at the Wakanda Forever event, in the movie theater that we rented out. Come on, that's it, And so we appreciate that, man. And like I said, I've known you for a long time. I know JoJo, somebody, and Robin, those are folks that you're close with, and you're part of the family for sure. To put it as blunt and directly as I possibly can, I truly believe that starting this association, if someone says, Sean, you can only pick one thing that you're most proud of within your career professionally, it would be this. And I've been blessed to be a part of some pretty cool things, and I've worked hard in my journey to try to set myself up for certain opportunities. But I would say that I think this is thus far something that I'm the most proud of. So let me say one more thing. I remember I was in a job interview, not for the Mariners. It was unrelated to. It was for another sports team that I don't think is important to necessarily mention. But in that interview, someone asked me, "What's the most thing that you're proud of within your career?" And in the context of that interview, I said this Alumni Association. So that's how much this means to me. So, and I'll say why, because I think the why is important. Why does this mean so much to me in a second? But in terms of the genesis and how this was created. So I came on as young faculty to the division in 2009. That's when I was adjunct. And then I transitioned as full-time faculty to the division in 2010, to the Division of Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy at USC. And so then shortly after me coming on as full-time faculty, and when you're young, you're hungry, you're eager, you don't say no to a lot of stuff, right? And so see an opportunity, you're ooh, pick me, right? You're trying to run by run, climb that ladder, right? And so at a faculty meeting, there was this opportunity where our chair at the time, who's still the chair, Jim Gordon, mentioned an opportunity for a need to fulfill as faculty liaison to the Physical Therapy Alumni Association for the Division of Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy. And I jumped on it. And so I served as the liaison between the division and the Physical Therapy Alumni Association for maybe a little over 2 years, close to 3, but for sure 2. And had a great time, worked alongside some great leaders of the association. We had a lot of fun. Some of the alumni who were on the board had been a PT for 30 some odd years, at the time, probably longer than I've been alive, right? And so met some incredible people within that experience. But one thing that I noticed was that we were having these events and things were coming together, and I didn't see anyone that ever looked like me. Oftentimes at our alumni events, I was the only Black physical therapist and for that matter, the Black alum there.
Right.
And I'm the liaison. I'm not technically a full-fledged, I'm a member because I'm an alumni, but I'm not practicing on the board. I'm not, because I'm supposed to be connecting and liaisoning between the division and the Alumni Association. And so it was at that moment that I had started to have this idea of, well, what if we had something where, because I know that there's Black alumni out there, what if we had something where we can connect and bring the alumni together? Now, fast forward, I believe it's like 2013, and I had some friends of mine who lived in LA, and then another friend of mine who flew out from DC, where she was living with her husband at the time, who just happened to be in town. And I was like, I want to get folks together and have a dinner and discuss this potential opportunity to have a Physical Therapy Black Alumni Association. And we met at a restaurant that I don't think exists anymore, not too far from Little Tokyo. And we had an amazing, dope conversation. We broke bread. We had exchanged some ideas. And I was excited. I was amped up. But then shortly after that dinner, and this is one thing I'm actually proud of myself for being a young person back then and recognizing, was I wasn't ready yet to create an association. I was very young in my career. I'm at the time 4 or 5 years into my career. I hadn't had enough leadership experience yet. I'm still developing as a leader, still growing as a professional, still growing as a physical therapist, still building my network, all the different things that I felt like, I don't know if I'm quite yet ready to create an association, alumni association.
That takes maturity to be able to realize something like that.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And I wasn't always the most smart with those decisions. Like I said, I didn't say no to a lot of stuff. And so I don't know, for whatever reason, I said no to that. I don't know why, because I said yes to a whole lot of stuff back then. But I'm glad I didn't try to do it then. Right. And so, and the other thing about it too was I was also full-time faculty still, albeit I was clinical faculty, I was still full-time faculty. So technically, if you're going to start and be on the board, you should be more removed from the division, from the physical therapy program that you work for. And so fast forward. So I was able to start gaining some leadership experience. You and I met. I was the chair of the California Physical Therapy Association, San Gabriel District. From there, I transitioned on to the California Physical Therapy Association Board of Directors. Even in baseball, I served as a charter board member for the Professional Baseball Physical Therapy Society. So I've always had this passion for leadership.
Right.
I'm starting to be in positions where I can be exposed to what does leadership look like, and it comes in so many different forms. And not just what does leadership look like, but what does a board look like? What is a board? How does processes related to a board work? How does a board run? Because if we're going to do something, we want to do it right.
Right.
And then now we fast forward, it's 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. And I'm not talking about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
So rest in power to those individuals. And we had the civil unrest associated with their murders and their passing. And so a friend of mine and a tremendous leader in her own right, Dr. Dee Dee Matthews, who is now the vice chair of diversity, equity, inclusion for the USC Division of Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy, put together a town hall. And obviously it was a virtual town hall because, one, it was COVID, and two, she wanted to bring people from outside the state anyway. And so there's this virtual town hall that happened within weeks, I think, of I think George Floyd, and obviously our Martin Albright already happened earlier. And there's over 200 physical therapists on this Zoom call. It's incredibly powerful. It was
Wow.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm on this Zoom call, I'm scrolling through the pages of the Zoom because it was pages, because there's that many people. And I'm seeing all these Black faces and friends and people I recognize and Black alumni and all these people. And at that moment, when I saw all those faces on there and given what happened, I knew now's
This
the time.
was the time.
This is the time.
Wow.
Because, and there's a couple things. I had, through my journey, got comfortable enough where I truly believed I was literally ready from my experience as a professional to do this. Two, life is about timing. Within a normal season of a baseball season, there's no way in heck I can have the time to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But because of COVID, baseball wasn't happening, right? There was no sports that were happening at that moment. So I had nothing but time. We were all just sitting in our homes on Instagram, doing whatever we were doing, right?
That's called
and so
seizing the
I
moment.
had this. Sorry again?
That's called seizing the moment.
Exactly, right.
Mm-hmm.
Life's about opportunity, and I had this window of time to create this, and I, put all my creative energy and juices into this thing. And 2 weeks after that town hall, I sent out an email to I put together an Excel spreadsheet, a directory of all the PTs that I knew, and then if I didn't know somebody, I reached out to PTs who could have known somebody, all the physical therapists who identified as Black. And this is not just for physical therapists. This is for scientists, the biokinesiologists as well, the biomechanists. But we didn't have any alumni at the time from there.
Right.
And reached out to folks, and I sent out a mass email saying this email marks the official start of the USC Division of Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy Black Alumni Association. And that was in June of 2020.
Right.
And we grew to have a board of directors where I serve as the acting president. We have a vice president, treasurer, secretary, 3 directors. We have our liaisons, faculty liaison Didi, who's serving in that role, student liaison, student leaders, and we have 5 committees. We have our membership and outreach committee, we have our mentorship committee, we have our fundraising committee, we have our scholarship committee, and we have our social media committee. And it's been a blessing to be a part of the journey. I've been blessed to be surrounded by incredibly talented, driven, passionate leaders who have pushed me to make me better. And we continue to try to move at a high level to push forward the vision and mission of the association.
Wow. And I mean, I love how that all came together and the timing of it all, and how, we can take a tragic, unfortunate moment for the whole country. And somehow it's like it's like a rose from the concrete type of situation. You know what I mean? Where
Yes.
we can create those kind of, and why it's so important to me when I found out about it was because there was a lecture that Dr. Lisa Van Hoos gave a couple years ago. And in that lecture, she mentioned that somewhere around the population of Black physical therapists was around 4%. And I didn't know that. And I was like, it kind of just one of those things you hear it and you're like, wait, did I hear that right? 4%. That was what made it so important to me when I found out what you were doing. And that's why I wanted to be involved, as much as I could, and at least, attend events and break bread and just get to know all these individuals who are doing great work across across Southern California, and, reach out to people in other places. That's fantastic too, just to bring everybody together, like you said, man. So again, I got to give you one of these for forming that organization right there. Give them a little clap.
I love it.
All the switches, man.
Come on.
But I also
can I just real quick, I don't want to cut you off, but what you said was so important, Ryan, and I wanted to kind of touch on that if I could, just expand on that just a little bit more, because what I shared was my personal journey with the association. What I shared was my personal why as to why I wanted to create the association, and I also shared our how, our process related to it, the board and the committee. There's a great book out there by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And we know that as individuals, we should have our why. And as organizations and associations, we should have our why. And what you just said was the why. It's why we exist. And I just wanted to just touch a little bit more on that why. So our why, our vision statement is our why. And we know that any vision statement serves as a statement for an organization or association to strive towards, to work towards, to move towards. But that vision is so far reaching and so encompassing that you know that you may not ever get to the realization of the vision, which keeps you working towards that vision, right? And so our vision is to change the landscape for optimal equity and inclusion within the USC Trojan family, physical therapy profession, and community at large. That's our why, that's our vision. And then our mission is the engine behind the vision. It's how we execute and move forward literally to try to achieve that vision. And so our vision, and it's a long, nice long vision. I'm going to give you the abbreviated version. The USC Biokinesiology and Physical Therapy Black Alumni Association uplifts, empowers Black physical therapists and biokinesiology students and alumni by providing care. And care is an acronym which stands for community, advocacy, representation, and equity. So those four elements of our mission, community, advocacy, representation, equity, are the literal arms that we work towards in our process to make sure that we're working towards that vision that I read earlier. And what you said about Lisa's speech is spot on. If you look at actual labor statistics within the profession of physical therapy, those who identify as Black is actually 5%. And if you look at the membership of the American Physical Therapy Association, members of our largest governing body within this country who identify as Black are less than 3%. So if you think about that, 5% of the entire profession and less than 3% of part of our governing body, there's this tremendous lack of representation of Black physical therapists. And not only is that lack of representation amongst you and I, us as professionals, but then if you're an aspiring student who identifies as Black, then the chances of you having a mentor or someone to look towards or look up to within the profession becomes that much more challenging to connect to or slim because of the lack of representation.
Right.
And then if you're a patient who could benefit from care from someone who looks like you, the access to that person becomes harder and more challenging because, again, of that lack of representation.
Right.
So that indeed is why we exist, 100%.
Yeah, and it's trust me, it's definitely heartfelt on my end and by a bunch of other individuals that have been touched by the formation of this organization. So again, kudos to you, man. And
I appreciate that.
The last question I want to ask you, we're going to stick on your personal accomplishments because that's what I really want to highlight as we reach the end of this show. But thank you again so much for coming on. But tell me, Rehab Sport and Performance, that is your business, your creation. Tell me about it.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you mentioning that, bringing that up. Again, as someone who's tried to be a high achiever and try to push myself, I've always had this goal of wanting to have my own business. I do think that even within our community, and I think all individuals should have this desire of wanting to own something, right? Whether it be land or real estate or a business, whatever. And I think that within our community, within the Black community, it's vitally important that we also are able to own something. This is the second business that I've started. Again, within my journey, I've had wins and I've had losses. One thing that we haven't talked about, I'll just touch on briefly. I spent a period of my time while I was at USC full-time working as a home physical therapist on the side, and I loved it. I loved working with the older adult, the geriatric patient, et cetera. The reason why that's relevant is I created a physical therapy staffing company where we would provide physical therapy services for a variety of different agencies, physical therapy, OT, and speech therapy services. And the company itself was successful. It had a lot of what we call goodwill as relates to business, where I was growing the company. We went from when I took the company over with two other business partners, we had one or two agencies that we had contracts with. Within a matter of 6 months, we had 60 agencies. We went from having one physical therapy assistant that was contracted with us to having over 15 physical therapists that were contracted with us, and again, looking to expand to OT and speech. And of the 60 home physical therapy agencies, there was about close to 10 where we were their primary like they came to us first before any other agency.
Wow.
So the business was going to where I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is there was 3 of us that started the company. 2 of the other business partners had to transition off. Again, not recognizing when to say no and always saying yes to things. I thought I was Superman, and I was like, okay, you guys can walk. I'm going to do this by myself. And so now I'm full-time faculty at USC and a full-time business owner. And after another 7 or 8 months of doing that, I realized there's no way in hell, excuse my language, but I just had to say it, that I can continue on this route.
Right.
And so I ended up selling the company, but I learned a lot from that experience. And then fast forward, I always knew that I wanted to start another company, and life's about timing. And so now was the season of my life where I felt that this was the right time to do this. And so it's, as I mentioned before, I have the amazing opportunity to see patients at the Meyer Institute of Sport. And what I'm doing is seeing a combination of their clients, their patients, and then I also have a combination of my own clients that I see through advanced rehab and sports performance. It's at the very literal genesis of its process. We just got that name incorporated. We're just now growing. So I already have clients. I've had clients for a while, but in terms of truly incorporating the business, that's now that just happened. And I'm excited to see where this business goes and grows, and I'm excited about it. And I'm motivated, I'm amped up, I'm fired up, and I'm looking forward to what the future holds as it relates to advanced rehab sports and performance.
The future is bright, man. The future is bright. Advanced Rehab Sport and Performance. Look it up, please. It is a very good opportunity to seek and gain rehabilitation from one of the best to do it, man. Mr. Sean Johnson made it happen. I appreciate you so much. This is the first episode, man. So this has been fun. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more. And what I really want to do also is take a couple folks, maybe we mentioned JoJo and Robin and a couple others, and do a panel, do a panel for Black physical therapists and just talk about some of the things we encounter, on a daily, and just really just chop it up and have some fun, man. I would like to do that. So I'll try to get that coordinated in the near future, man. But yeah,
let me know when and where, brother. I'll be there.
Yeah, we can do that. So any closing comments you have, let the people know where they can find you, how they can, if they have any follow-up questions they want to ask you or learn about the business or anything like that.
No, absolutely. So as I said, the business it's a baby and brand new. It's like that baby that's just learning how to take its first few steps yet. So it's so new that I don't have a formal business email yet, but that's soon to come. But I have no problem getting on my personal email, which is my name, Sean Johnson. Sean is spelled SEAN, Sean Johnson, DPT@gmail.com. I would love to connect with individuals who would like to reach out to me in any way or shape or form. And I guess for me, I just, as you can tell, by this conversation that you and I have had, I'm an incredibly passionate human being. I think that, life is about pursuing your passion. Life is too short for us to just work and not do something that is related to our passion, something that is related to our craft. And I've been blessed for 15 years. I have the opportunity to be inundated with a passion and a craft that keeps me going every day, that excites me. And I just encourage, all of your listeners to continue to strive and work towards your passion. Strive and work towards something that's going to truly make you get out of bed and fuel you in that very positive way. And so I think that's the biggest thing I say is pursue that passion. And then finally, I just want to give you your flowers, man, because I think this is a huge deal. I feel more than honored to be your first guest. I know this is about to be one of the biggest podcasts on the airways. You're about to blow up. Stephen A. Smith and all the rest of them better watch out, because Ryan Lavell's coming, man. So
watch out, guys.
Brother,
we're coming for it, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the encouragement. This has been an episode of the Parallax Effect. We are taking off. Leave your comments on the YouTube channel. Like I said, Twitter, Parallax Effects with an S, Parallax Effects. And on Instagram, Parallax Effect Media. Let me know how we did, how I can do better. reach out to Sean. Sean, you got any socials you want to jump on there for the folks?
Yeah, Sean John DPT is my Instagram, email, and then that's my Instagram. Yep.
Sean John DPT is where it is at. Not to be confused with Sean John Clothing Line. That may have been your first endeavor.
Right.
But this is the latest. This is the latest and the greatest. Sean John DPT. I am Ryan Lavelle. This has been the Parallax Effect. Thank you guys so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks again, brother.